Greetings, gardeners. Yes, this is a Green Garden Guy garden video today. I know, I've been away from the garden for a while, talking about electric cars and solar collectors and playing music with Jimmy and, you know, all that stuff. Well, life's round. We do all kinds of stuff, whether we're gardeners or not. So, I had one of the viewers request that I would do a show about my favorite vegetable varieties. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good idea, so here we are. I want to start with tomatoes, just because they're the most popular garden vegetable in America today. So, we'll start at the top of the list with my favorite large fruited tomatoes. Here on the screen we have Big Beef, which is, I believe it came from Burpees. It's one of the large hybrid type slicing tomatoes. It has excellent flavor. It's very disease resistant, extremely productive, well adapted, and so I give it a good mark. It is in the family of tomatoes like Big Boy or Better Boy and such and such. It's the Early Girl is somewhere related into this thing too, and I haven't put it down here, but certainly I will give marks to Early Girl as being a rapid growing tomato that produces decent quality crops in a wide variety of different environments. Then we have Celebrity, which has been a favorite of mine for quite a while. This is a determinate tomato. It has, in other words, the bush is smaller on the plant. It was a 1984 All-American Award winner, and it really it hasn't been superseded since. It's a very sweet, large slicing tomato. I highly recommend it. Good disease resistance, Verticillium, Temecula egg virus, nematodes, and so on. Then we have a very unusual tomato that came out of the breeding programs at the Oregon, State University of Oregon program. Oregon Spring. Love this tomato. Great tomato. It's not particularly disease resistant maybe, but it's incredibly fast, and it really doesn't hardly make any seed. The inside of the tomato is mostly juice and meat, so it is probably one of the best to use for making tomato juice. It's a good tasting tomato. It's a determinate small bush. It produces the fruits without having to have pollination. So if you live somewhere where the weather is too cold in spring and most of your tomato flowers fall off, we have these problems. This is the tomato for you. The tomato flowers will not fall off. They will set vegetatively and give you these nice, good size slicing tomatoes that have almost no seeds. Moving right along to that popular class of heirlooms, Brandywine. Brandywine almost always comes up high on the top of a list, you know, as far as excellent tasting tomatoes in any tasting. And I approve. I think Brandywine is one of the better tasting tomatoes I've ever eaten when it is adapted and grows well in your environment. Not as easy to grow in the western U.S. as it is in the eastern U.S. It originates in Amish communities in the eastern U.S., and that's really what it likes. It also enjoys organic fertilizers, a good mulch, plenty of moisture, and so on. It wants to be pampered. It's not a hybrid, it's an heirloom. But it's a really good tasting tomato, and the Sudeth strain, that's S-U-D-E-T-H, Sudeth. It's an Amish family. The Sudeth strain is probably the most widely adapted form of this plant. Ah, yes. Then we have Cherokee Purple. Cherokee Purple is, again, another one of the heirloom tomatoes that is quite productive. I find Cherokee Purple to be one of the stronger of the heirloom tomatoes that I've ever raised. When it's cut, it has almost a color of ham or something on the inside. They call it purple. I don't really see it as purple, but it's an unusual colored tomato. It's not unattractive. It has very good flavor, and it's highly productive. Then we have the small fruited tomatoes, which here in Hawaii, that's the best thing we got going for us, really, because the fruit fly plums here are terrible on larger fruited tomatoes. But Sun Gold, probably one of the most popular cherry tomatoes in the garden in America today. It's a delicious golden cherry tomato, very sweet, very sweet. If it's dehydrated or dried in the sun, man, it's sweeter than a raisin. It's really delicious. Juliet. Juliet is somewhere kind of in between bigger and littler tomatoes. It's, you know, about maybe 1.5 ounce tomato. So it's got a pretty good size to it. It's good for cooking or for eating fresh. It's got a nice flavor, highly productive. I like Juliet. Then there's Valentine, which I have a love affair with Valentine. Valentine is relatively new in my garden. 2 years back I started raising it. I love it. I don't really know what its parentage is, but it appears, I'm gonna guess, I'd say this is a cross between like a Roma or Italian style tomato and a cherry tomato, because it has the sweetness of the cherry tomato, but it's got kind of the pulp and a little bit of the shape of an Italian. Now it's a small tomato, you know, it's a little guy. But oh man, is it good, and it's productive. The vines survive weather here in Hawaii without dying from disease. It's really, really a good tomato. And then, of course, since we're talking about Hawaii and growing tomatoes, most of the rest of you get off a little easier than we do over here when it comes to this crop. Tomatoes are not the easiest thing in the world to raise in Hawaii, but the University of Hawaii does have a website where they will sell vegetable seeds. Okay, and there is an N63, which is a hybrid tomato. It's an indeterminate with a green shoulder, which is kind of old-fashioned, but it's resistant to the nematodes. It's resistant to fusarium wilt, gray leaf spot, and one strain of spotted wilt virus, including tolerance to tobacco mosaic virus. Pretty neat, huh? Yeah, it's quite a thing. It is the first large fruited, you know, sort of early girl type tomato that I have ever raised here that was successful. Now, it didn't persist like my cherries and other crops would, but it made one good crop and then passed away on me. Who's complaining? So if you live in Hawaii, you want a big tomato, and you don't mind having a little bit of a green shoulder like some of the heirlooms have, try it. It's a good one. You can get it straight from the university. So then up next, lettuce is probably one of the more commonly eaten vegetables. Many of us eat lettuce almost every day. It's very common. So I would like to take lettuce on next. Here in Hawaii, the most popular variety of lettuce we have is one from the University of Hawaii, and it's called Manoa. Now, Manoa is available also from some mainland catalogs. You can get it from the university also. Here there is almost nothing else that's grown as much as this particular lettuce. It's actually a local form of butter crunch. It seems to work a little bit better here in this climate than the standard butter crunch does. For some reason in Hawaii, I have a problem with lettuce elongating. Now, I don't mean bolting to seed. I just have a problem with the central stalk getting taller than it ever did in the mainland for me before the lettuce is finished. Well, the Manoa tends to stay down pretty good, so that's a good one. Butter crunch works here. It tastes all right, but it tends to get kind of tall, and so the heads just don't form as nicely as they should. Next to that, we have the original butter crunch, which is a real good lettuce. Standard. It's fairly old type. Been around a long time. It really hasn't been superseded as far as I'm concerned. There are many, many, many different breeds out of this, but the plain old butter crunch, I just raised a crop of it here. Good stuff. Okay, so those were the butterhead types. Now next, I like romaine. Romaine is really a good thing if you're going to fold it up as a wrap around some sort of food like tabbouleh or something. You know, you can put almost anything in a leaf of romaine and eat it. It's also got a nice crunch to it in general. romaine can get bitter depending on your climate. It's a little picky that way. Coastal Star is one that I like. I've raised it recently for the first time. It's a good one. It came out all right. The plain old Paris Island Caz, that's an original. It's still a good one, but it's not as tolerant to adverse conditions like heat. And that brings us to some of the leaf lettuce forms. There are many. Everybody's got their own, I suppose. For many, many years, I had raised a lettuce called salad ball. It's an oak leaf type. I think salad ball is a great lettuce, and it worked really well for me for many years in the mainland. Again, in moving to Hawaii, I found out that the stems elongated in it for some reason before it was ready. So I found panacea. Now, I'm not sure if my pronunciation's right, so you French people out there, you can go ahead and jump on me. I don't speak French, but it's a French name. It comes from a French breeder. You can get it from Johnny Selected Seeds. It looks to be a type of salad bowl that is far more compact. So it makes really pretty heads. The quality is as good or better than any salad bowl I ever ate, and it doesn't elongate on me here. So panacea is thumbs up. So moving right along into cucumbers. I have a number of favorites, and cucumber is kind of a favorite of mine. They're difficult here, I tell you, but yeah. So one of my favorite cucumbers has been suyo long. Suyo long is a Chinese, Japanese sort, burpless type long, skinny chop. It is low in the gas as far as belching. It's quite sweet, very nice, very tasty cucumber. It has an odd, almost corrugated surface that when you cut it in half, it looks like little gears because of the way it's shaped. Kind of interesting looking cucumber. And we have what's known as Middle Eastern cucumbers or alpha beta cucumbers. They tend to be smoother, more seedless, and thinner, more tender skins. And Diva is an excellent Middle Eastern cucumber. We also have another, though, that's just a little longer than Diva, and that one's called Amiga. Amiga is also excellent Middle Eastern cucumber. Then I have gone on and have many videos about how hard it is to grow cucumbers here, and so I resorted to parthenocarpic cucumbers. Those are the ones that don't need bees, they don't need pollination, and so I can grow them completely in exclusion. I have numerous videos about doing this. One of my choices on a parthenocarpic cucumber for field production here is Katrina. Katrina is a real good one, and almost identical as far as I'm concerned. There is another one called Socrates. And so Socrates is another one of the parthenocarpic cucumbers. In common English, we often call these the English burpless cucumbers or English greenhouse cucumbers. You find them wrapped in cello, you know, with $1 or more a piece in the supermarkets. I don't know. I don't shop cucumber. I don't know what you're paying for them, but they're kind of expensive. And so is the seed. You'll faint when you see the price of the seed. But if you have pickleworm problems wherever you live, there's no solution that works better than using parthenocarpic cucumbers under exclusion. Yep, Socrates. Well, and of course, everybody loves to make pickles, huh? And so, generally speaking, most of the salad cucumbers are not really good for pickle making. So if you want to make pickles, you really want to get yourself a pickling cucumber, which I just usually call pickles, whether they've got vinegar on them or not. And H19 Little Leaf has been one of my favorites for a long time. It's mildew resistant. That's a nice thing about it. It has smaller leaves on the plant, and so it doesn't get mildew as bad. There's better air circulation around it. So H19 Little Leaf, that's my favorite pickle. y'all know how much I love growing corn, right? Yeah, and there are so many different varieties of corn. That's one reason I love corn, right? But I'm going to stick just strictly to sweet corn, which is what most of us raise. And it's been a long time, going way back into the mainland, even when I lived there, that I was raising the University of Hawaii varieties. I've been using Manoa varieties of sweet corn ever since the first time I ever tasted Hawaiian Super Sweet. It's top notch. I have not run across corn that I like better. And so my favorite variety from the university is the number 10 hybrid, which is a bicolor sweet corn on a pretty good size stalk, nice size ears, well fertilized. You get 2 decent ears per stalk. The quality of the corn is outstanding, and so you can get this through my seed website if you want to go that route. Otherwise, you can order it directly through the University of Hawaii. It's the Manoa Seed Bank or Seed Lab, it's called, if you want to Google it. There are some very interesting open pollinated sweet corns at the university too. There are very few really good high quality open pollinated sweet corns where you can actually save your own seeds from year to year. And so there is a number 9. Number 9 is a yellow non-hybrid sweet corn, and then its white sister is called silver. And it's basically the same corn, but it's in white color, not yellow. They're really good. The quality's excellent, etc., etc. But I do have one problem with them, at least here I do. They seem to be low in pollen production. And so it's not unusual that I won't get the tips filled out of my ears when I'm using these. Oftentimes what I have done is I've actually interplanted rows of their hybrid number 10 along with number 9, because the hybrid has far more pollen production and it helps everything fill out better. Yep, and then we got broccoli. Yeah, so I find that Bellstar is an outstanding variety of broccoli. It's quite stress resistant and tolerant to many different conditions. Now this is a commercial production style of broccoli, and so if you grow it in the home garden, expect to see one good beautiful head form, nice and large, and then it's not going to do a lot of side shoot production, okay, but it will make a gorgeous head of broccoli with nice tight curd. Then we have Arcadia. Now Arcadia is again a nice size initial head, but Arcadia has outstanding side shoot production. So when you cut off the original head, you'll get these nice side shoots that come, provided you cut the plant deep enough, like removing about half of it. When you do the harvest, then you'll minimalize the side shoots, and ideally about 3 is typical. You'll get that will be about a third the size of the original head, but when you put them all together, it's about the same. And you do see it's sold that way in the market, where they bundled the smaller heads together. Arcadia is real good. It's got great cold tolerance. This will raise in mild areas during the winter months without any harm to frost and so on. Then there is Gypsy. Gypsy is another one of the commercial style hybrids that makes these great, big, beautiful heads, and then it's over with. Okay, but it's quite disease resistant, very productive. It's tolerant to poor soil conditions, which is kind of an interesting thing. And then another one of my favorite vegetables, green beans. I love green beans. They're just a standard in my house. And of all the green beans on earth that I have ever tried, which is really quite a list by now, Vortex. It's a French pole bean that's typical of French beans, being a long, skinny filet, you know, the tiny. This one will actually fill out to more American standards and still be excellent quality. It doesn't get tough and fibrous. The bean has incredible flavor. it's so long that it's really easy to pick off the vines because it hangs down below the leaves. It's just, it's a pleasure in all ways. I have never given anybody seed or told them about this bean who tried it or gave them a plate of them to eat who didn't get back to me going, man, that's the best green bean I've ever eaten. It is Vortex. You'll love it. My replacement for it here in Puna comes from the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and it's called Poa Moho. So that's Poamoho. It's on their website. They describe it as Poa Moho is a pole bean variety, stringless and resistant to root knot nematodes. There's a pole type requiring a trellis. Growth matures, blah, blah, blah. They're about 5 to 6 inches in length. They are some pretty good sized beans. They're not quite as tender and not quite as well flavored as Vortex, but the vines are very healthy, extremely productive, and it is a really good quality bean. Now, I generally don't like growing bush beans. My opinion is that bush beans are made for mechanical harvesting machines, not for human beings. I much prefer to stick a stick in the ground and run the bean up so I can sit there and pick from the waist up. That's my attitude towards beans. But turns out that Jade 2 is a bush bean that has extremely high quality produce, and it is fairly tolerant to problems and diseases here. I can get a crop off of these, whereas a lot of other beans, they just fail miserably in our environment. So I recommend Jade 2 as a bush bean. My favorite pea of all time is the sugar snap that was bred by the University of Oregon. I remember being alive back before we had sugar snap peas. Shelling is a lot of work, you know? It's a lot of work, and I'm really not into it personally, although I do love that style of pea. My favorite in that is the tall telephone or alderman. Same pea, two different names for some reason. It's a 19th century pea. This is an old pea, and it's actually getting kind of hard to find. I don't know if it's because people don't like to put up trellises and nets to grow their peas. Maybe that's why. Everything's been bred down pretty much to these short stalks. Now, sugar snap is about the same size as tall telephone. These are big peas. You got to put up a support. But tall telephone is by far my favorite shelling pea on earth. It's quite tolerant to diseases and problems, very productive, strong growing pea. It's the only pea I've ever grown that I actually managed to get 11 peas to a pod. I think that's pretty incredible. They're really huge, well-filled pods. The quality of the pea is outstanding, and being a pole style or a tall growing pea, most picking goes on from about the waist or the knee and up, which is what I prefer. I don't want to have to bend over to do this. I'm going to stop there. It's too many seeds, you know. There's just so much to talk about in the garden. Maybe we'll get back to some of the other types of vegetables that we grow at some other point. But I think those are some of the most popular. Aloha, you know, hang loose.